Hello, hello.
Hello, John.
Hi.
Hello, Bob.
Oh, wow. I love your posters, Bob.
Well, thank
Yeah.
you so much. And I just now worked out the audio. Is the visual okay?
Oh, the
Looks
visual's
great.
perfect. Yeah.
It was looking great, Bob.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I just wanted to say a big thank you to Bob Furmanek for being here. And just in case, make sure everybody knows, Bob's going to be working with us at EAP Society, and we're really excited. And so John and I have a channel called the Elvis Archival Preservation Society, and we're doing a whole lot of great work. And John's got a really awesome channel called Atomic Wax that is really close to monetization. So
Very
get on
close.
over there. So get on over there and subscribe over to that. And also subscribe if you have not yet to Otherworldly Fundraising on
Yes.
YouTube, so we can get that over. And
on Facebook and on
yeah,
Instagram.
yeah. Oh, okay. Instagram. That's right. Yeah, Instagram too. And don't forget, right here is the QR code. You can scan that. And Option Save Lives is helping folks fight alcohol use disorder, and it really does save lives. It's pretty incredible stuff. And the next life that could be saved might be yours. If you are suffering from AUD, be sure to get in there and contact the folks at Option Save Lives. So, all right, Bob, John, you all have fun, and I'm looking forward to hearing all about it. So,
Heck yeah, man.
Thank you, Jamie.
I appreciate that, Jamie. And like Jamie said, my name is John. I'm his co-host on EAP Society, and I do my own show, Atomic Wax. And with us today is a guy I have really enjoyed getting to talk to a couple of times, and I think you're going to really enjoy this too. This is Mr. Bob Furmanek from the 3D Film Archive. So how you doing today, Bob?
I'm doing great, John, and that feeling's mutual. Getting to know you and Jamie the last few weeks has been an absolute joy, and you guys are doing such incredible work in the Elvis Presley world, which my connection with Elvis goes back to the 1960s, and I worked on some projects in the 80s and 90s. And I've really been knocked out with what you guys are doing. So kudos, and keep doing the amazing work you're doing.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Right back at you. So let's start this out today. I would like for you to tell everybody a little bit about, before we get into the specifics of 3D film, tell us a little bit about you and how you got into the movies and how you discovered the world of 3D film. Because I was reading a little bit about this on your blog, and I think it's a really interesting story.
Well, it goes back to 1966, believe it or not. And I'll make it very brief because I know we have a limited amount of time here. But in a nutshell, 1966, like many other 5-year-old kids, I was Batman crazy because the TV show had premiered in January of that year. And like a lot of other people, we only had black and white television. So that's how I saw Batman. And for my 5th birthday, my parents bought me what was called TrueView, which was similar to Viewmaster. It was a little bit of a different format, but essentially it had strips of film with color, 3-dimensional images from the Batman episode that introduced Catwoman.
Oh, wow.
And I remember just being it was not just the color, but the 3D, and it put you on the set. And, you got to imagine a 5-year-old who's bat crazy, all of a sudden entering that world. It just, I would spend hours and hours looking at these images. And about 5 years later, my dad had taken me into New York, and I learned about 3D movies. And my dad remembered some things from the 1950s, but I wanted to know more. And I wanted to understand how it worked. And more than anything else, I wanted to see these films in 3D. And at that time, around 1973, the only new 3D movies coming out were X-rated. And, 12-year-old Bob Furmanek was not going to X-rated movies.
You had better parents than that.
Yeah, exactly. My parents understood my obsession, but not that deeply, you know. So I started doing research and looking for things. And what I found very quickly was that there was a tremendous amount of apathy towards 3D. Whatever I could find that was written in movie books basically dismissed it. And I just couldn't accept that because, well, wait a minute. If these 3D movies are like these 3D, ViewMaster images, they've got to be amazing, right?
Right.
So that lit a fire. And, I was very aggressive about trying to learn more. And I eventually did start to see some vintage 3D. And when I saw how amazing they looked, it blew me away because it basically busted all the myths that these films were badly photographed and all this. And when I got a little bit older and started getting my feet wet with working in the industry, thanks to my brother Ron, who worked on This Is Elvis, I made it a point to try to do what I could to find and locate the 3D movies, mainly because I wanted to see them myself. But then
Yeah.
I didn't want to be the only, person who recognized this. So then the ideas for 3D Film Archive got kind of planted in my head because I realized that if more people could see what I was seeing, these movies would get a whole new appreciation and respect. And
Now that you
that's
said
what
that,
happened.
that is a perfect setup for my next question, because as a millennial, I sort of grew up in the time where the 3D films that were at the cinema were these CGI monstrosities that gave you headaches after you watched them. And
Yeah.
I was, quite surprised. Like, I knew that 3D films had been a thing before, but I didn't realize just how big of a thing it had been for a few years. Really, almost for a decade, from about 52 to 62, you had people, I guess, making 3D films. So give us a little bit of the history, like what was Hollywood looking for in 3D? What were the technical challenges they experienced, and why do you think it's taken so long for 3D to catch on as a format, really?
Well, the biggest issue that 3D faced all through the years was the presentation element of it. The camera rigs, as cumbersome as they were to photograph the films, really did capture a good quality stereoscopic image.
So how would they
And I
make
think,
these films back in the 50s?
well, they were photographed with. There were easily a dozen different camera rig designs. Almost every studio designed their own camera rig, but it was two 35 millimeter cameras that would capture a left eye view and a right eye view of the scene that they were filming. And the lenses were about 2.5 inches apart, so roughly the distance between adult eyes.
Sure.
And they were shown in theaters on 35 millimeter projectors, and each projector had a filter in front to polarize the light so that the glasses given to you in the theater would have the same polarization as the filters in the booth, and your left eye would see the left projector image, and the same with your right eye. For many,
So
many decades.
for people who are newbies out here, this is not the red and blue 3D that where you have to wear
No, and
the little paper glasses.
I was just going to mention that's called anaglyphic 3D, and that dates back to the earliest exhibitions were 1915, and there were a number of features and shorts done in the 1920s in that process, because polarization of light didn't exist until Edwin Land of the Polaroid Corporation developed polarization properties and filtering in the mid 1930s. So
Wow.
starting in about 1939, the vast majority, and I would say easily probably like 98% of 3D that was seen from 1939 until the 1970s was all polarized, which not only allowed full color stereo images, but was a very high quality. Where it gets confusing in the 1970s, some of the older films were converted to the red and blue anaglyphic 3D
Right.
and reissued that way.
That's where
They were also shown on TV.
that's where you get the famous photographs of everybody wearing the anaglyphic paper glasses in the theaters, right?
Well, that's a good point, John, because that photo was taken in 1952
Oh, okay.
at the world premiere of Moana Devil, which was the first full color 3D motion picture.
So that was a
And
polarized screening then.
they're all wearing Polaroid glasses. It was taken for Life magazine. And again, in the 1980s, maybe somebody colorized that image and put red and cyan glasses, which was a total
Because it was what they
bogus.
understood at the time. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and we still have that today, and ironically now, because the 3D Blu-ray format, uh, the display manufacturers dropped support of 3D televisions about 9 years ago now.
Wow.
In order to make our releases, more profitable and viable for people to see in 3D, we've actually had to start including an anaglyphic version, which goes against everything we ever fought to, fight and to try to clarify. But the advantage is you can see it on any display. You don't need a special screen. You don't need anything other than your monitor and the red and blue glasses.
So
And
let's go back to when they first or when they discovered the polarized light and they sort of perfected this process. So in the early 50s, Hollywood was sort of looking for different things to get people to come into the theaters because they were competing with television. And do you know what led to the decision to try 3D? Like how did that come about?
the movie going theaters around the country hit their peak years right after World War II, because you had all the soldiers coming back, lots of date nights, people going to movies. So 1946 to about 1949 or 50, the movie business was booming. Well, those same couples started having families, and television became enormously popular. And by 1951, there were millions of people with televisions in their home, raising families, watching, this entertainment for free. So Hollywood was desperate to bring people back to the movies, and they offered things that you couldn't see at home.
Right.
CinemaScope, VistaVision, stereophonic sound, Cinerama, which was a roadshow presentation around the country using 3 projectors and a giant wraparound screen. So it was natural that 3D was tried. And actually, the boom it was pretty short-lived. It really hit its peak in the spring of 1953 when House of Wax premiered from Warner Brothers, and
Great movie.
just about, yeah, fantastic, and lightning out of the bottle, because it was a fantastic movie and great use of 3D. But by the end of 1953, 3D movies really were falling out of favor, because in order to project them properly, you had to have both left-right projectors perfectly in synchronization. So you couldn't even be a frame out of sync. If you were, you had eye strain. If you were 2 or 3 frames out, then audiences got headaches. And the Polaroid Corporation, which had a huge interest in 3D succeeding, they did field surveys in the fall of 1953 and found that nearly half of 3D presentations around the country were shown poorly. So you think about it, if you pay your 49 cents and go to a 3D movie and walk home with a headache, you're not going to go back.
Exactly.
So by early 1954, 3D was pretty well dead, and so the boom was very short. It lasted really less than a year. But now, with the work that we're doing restoring these films, and Money from Home, which you might have noticed I've got on
Love
display
it.
behind me, it was a $2 million 3D Technicolor production.
Wow.
And beautifully photographed, one of the best of the 3D movies. But by time it was released in early 1954, only about 2% of theaters played the 3D version. Most people saw it flat.
Wow. So the syncing problem was such an issue that it was just like too much for the theater owners to really want to deal with, I guess.
Yeah, if if you do a show and you have presentation issues and you get people demanding refunds or complaining and you're losing your audience, you're not going to run a 3D movie. And the studios, up until late in the year, required exhibitors to play the film in 3D. But they quickly dropped that because they realized that there was a lot of opposition.
So
So,
ironically, now we have better technology for displaying these 3D movies. But because the studios sort of do 3D and post rather than shoot for 3D, there's a whole other set of technical issues that are keeping audiences away from it. Because, like, that's one of the things I noticed from watching these 3D movies that you've restored on Blu-ray on my home theater is that, if it's shot properly, you don't get headaches. You just get the depth
oh,
effect, and it works as it is supposed to. And
yeah.
it's a little frustrating that we can't get sort of the medium and the technology on the same page, and the audience too. But
Well, yeah.
for the sake of everybody who's watching, tell them a little bit about all of the really interesting and surprising things you can see in the 3D movies of the 50s, because it was like, even though it was only around for a year, you had some major film artists and major film stars make films in 3D, including Dean and Jerry.
Well, yeah, it pretty much every studio launched some kind of film in 3D early in the year. And you've got directors like Alfred Hitchcock and Raoul Walsh and William Cameron Menzies, tremendously skilled people putting these films in front of the camera. Talent-wise, everyone from John Wayne to uh, Robert Mitchum, Linda Darnell, Jack Palance, Vincent Price, Victor Mature, Piper Laurie, Randolph Scott. I mean, it's a who's who of top box office stars from that period. And cinematographers, you had some Oscar-winning people behind the camera shooting the movies. So there was, it was part of the studio factory system.
Right.
And incredibly skilled artisans that were creating the work. And what's really thrilling for all of us now is by working with the studios to restore them, people are really getting a chance to see them in high quality 3D, and many cases for the first time.
Yeah, I
And
would imagine that is the case. It's an amazing thing to see. Like, especially if you're a horror movie fan or you like vintage sci-fi stuff like Robot Monster or It Came from Outer Space. Seeing these movies in 3D is an entirely different experience than seeing them flat. I can testify to that.
no, that's a good point. And the people that are still very dismissive of it, I put this idea out there. Would you want to watch a movie that was photographed and designed for color? Would you want to watch it in black and white? And these movies were planned for stereo cinematography.
Yeah.
The compositions were set for that. And it does make a difference. I'll tell you an example. Just last night in our screening room, I had a couple of young viewers here for a movie called Ceasefire, which was
Oh
a
yeah.
Hal Wallis production, an incredible film shot in Korea during the war. And Hal Wallis really used the stereo photography to kind of put you there. You're on the battlefields, you're marching with these soldiers, and it's incredibly effective. And after the screening, the two guests, they were in their early 20s, and I said, do you feel 3D added to your viewing? And they both were unanimous and said, absolutely. It gave you such a feel of reality and being part of, the action. And you wouldn't get that watching the film flat.
And I will say I had the same experience watching Hitchcock's Dial M for Murder. I think it is a B+ film, Hitchcock film regularly, but it is an A+ film in 3D. And it's one of those interesting things because, most people who got a chance to shoot in 3D really wanted to show it off. And Hitchcock uses it much more subtly because he films that entire film almost entirely in one room. And he uses the depth as a way to sort of generate suspense, by where you are placed in the frame, or if like the scene where the guy walks up right behind her, you're like, oh my God, he's right there. Like, it really does give you a palpable sense of tension that you don't get when watching it flat.
Yeah, and one of the very common myths is that these films were loaded with gimmicks and things thrown at the camera. And there is some of that. Everybody remembers the man with the paddle ball in House of Wax. Well, director Andre Detoth put him there for a very specific reason. All 3D movies, because of the limitations of the size reels that were in theaters at that time, had to have an intermission at about the halfway point through the movie. So the man with the paddle ball was used at the start of Act 2 to kind of bring you back into the movie,
right?
And get
he's barking you into the theater, literally.
Exactly. And the intermission points were very important to these movies because they were part of the creative process. The screenwriters, the directors all knew they were going to have one, and we always restore those because that break there is for a reason. And it could be a cliffhanger in the plot, something suspenseful. And it's important to honor the vision of the people that created the work and put it out there as they wanted you to see it.
Absolutely. We got a question here from the chat that is a great question, and lets me set up asking you a little bit about money from home. T. Hawkins asked, do you feel 3D is more suitable to a certain genre? And the reason that I think this is related to money from home is it's unusual to see a comedy in 3D. So what do you think? Is 3D more suitable to certain genres?
It depends what you're looking for. It was used, a lot of people think it was mostly used for science fiction or horror. And I think that's because the films that were shot that way in 3D were so memorable, like Creature from the Black Lagoon, and it came from outer space. But the most common genre in the 50s were Westerns.
Right.
And that sort of makes sense because these are done in some amazing locations. They left the back lot and went out in these, wonderful scenic areas, and the 3D added a lot just to the pictorial values of the movie. But I think good stereo cinematography can work in any type of movie. They used it in, for instance, film noir, The Glass Web and I, the Jury, photographed by John Alton, work really, really well in 3D.
And I will say, like, two of the surprises for me, because I have collected every single 3D restored disc that they've done to try to watch all of these. I was really surprised with how effective, like, those Redheads from Seattle, the musical is. And also Miss Sadie Thompson with Rita Hayworth, the drama, really beautifully photographed in 3D.
Yeah, on location in Hawaii, in fact. And Kiss Me Kate, a classic MGM musical, is wonderfully photographed in 3D. So it was across the board, all different types of movies. They even did a travelogue called Louisiana Territory, which was filmed in New Orleans at the Mardi Gras.
Wow.
And it's an incredible color 3D document of the 1953 Mardi Gras. We'd love to restore it. It's in the vaults at Warner Brothers, but we have not been able to work on that one yet.
Yeah, that and particularly the Bounty Hunter are the ones that I really want Warner to give to you guys, because
Oh yeah.
I love the Andre de Toth Randolph Scott westerns. Seeing another one in 3D, well, the best one I think that is in 3D, actually released, would be great. But tell us a little bit about Money from Home. I'm really interested in this restoration process, because I understand it's a lot more difficult than your average restoration process. And I'm also interested in the film, because I have not yet seen the film even flat. So,
Well, good. You've waited to see it the right way. So kudos to you, John. It was the first. Martin and Lewis in 1953 were the top box office stars. They were enormously huge and popular. Nightclubs, theater tours, television, even radio. And Hal Wallace was their producer, who had them under contract. And he was a strong advocate for 3D. So he gave this film a $2 million budget, which was huge for 1953. And it's based on a story written by Damon Runyon, who you might know from, Guys and Dolls. So it's got all the wild racetrack characters that Runyon would put in his movies. And it was a very complicated film, because it was photographed with a Technicolor camera system called Dynoptic 3D. And what that involved were 2 Technicolor cameras that were interlocked. So you had 3 strips of film for the left eye and 3 for the right eye. You had red, green, blue records for each eye. So that was 6 strips of film going through the camera for every take.
wow.
And it was one of the things I knew Jerry Lewis for many, many years. And his principal memory of the film was how hot the set was, because they were lighting not only for Technicolor, which required an enormous amount of light, but 3D as well. And everyone that I ever talked with who had something to do with the film remembered it was a very hot set. That was their principal recollection. It also took a long time. Normally, the average Martin and Lewis production prior to that time was about 30 days before the camera. And Money from Home was almost 60. So it was quite a long shoot. And it looks amazing. And we've been hoping for years to restore it. And we had to wait for the Blu-ray license to be available. And Kino Lorber, who is our principal distributor, they secured the license. And then the Paramount Pictures Archive treated this as a very serious preservation effort. And they agreed to scan all 72 reels of camera negative. So we have about 54,000 feet of film that was scanned in 4K resolution. You don't want to know the size of these files are immense. So normally on a restoration, we can get through a feature. On the average, it takes about 3 to 4 months, sometimes a little bit longer if there are problems with the elements. We've been working on this one for 2 years.
Wow. So this has been a major undertaking.
Enormous. It absolutely enormous. That said, I can now say for the record, because we're almost finished. So I've seen a lot of the reels in motion. It's going to be the best looking vintage 3D restoration.
Oh,
no competition. Nothing comes close. It looks absolutely stunning.
I can't wait. So let me ask you, do we get to see Dino singing in this in 3D?
Well, according to the poster, it says "Hear Dean Sing." So, yeah, he does a couple songs in it.
That's really cool. I can't wait to see that just for that.
It's a lot of fun, and it's a great movie to see with an audience. We ran a 35 millimeter archival print in 2003 at the World 3D Film Expo in Hollywood. And Pat Crowley was there, who we just lost her. She passed away about 2 weeks ago. And there were 600 or 700 people in the audience for the show. John, I couldn't believe the laughter and how the film came to life with an audience. So if you get a chance, try to invite a bunch of friends over for the screening and make it a party, because it's a comedy and it comes to life with an audience. So it's a lot of fun.
Like I can't imagine that comedy wasn't tried in 3D more often. And I will say, like, I really want to think like what Buster Keaton or Charlie Chaplin might have been able to do in 3D, but in the 1950s, there is no one you would rather have handling comedy in 3D than Jerry Lewis, the maestro himself. So
Jerry,
I can't wait to see that.
There are some fun moments in the movie where when they were on set, there's something called a point of convergence, which is basically where the two lenses of the camera align. And that is the base of the stereo window, or the base of the screen in your theater. So the DPs were very careful to keep things behind that window so that they're not coming out into the audience. And there are at least 3 times in the movie where Jerry just breaks that wall and enters. And, I'd like to think that it was an ad lib, but knowing how critical the lighting and everything was, I think these things were planned. But they definitely have fun with with entering the space and leaving the screen. And I should point out, because you mentioned comedy, most famously there were 2 3D shorts from the Three Stooges.
Oh, that's right.
You have in each short, the first one was Spooks and the second is Pardon My Backfire. If it's not nailed down, it's thrown at the camera. And it's a lot of fun. And both shorts were released on Blu-ray. Twilight Time included them as some bonus extras. They're now out of print, I think, unfortunately. But
what disc were those on?
Good question.
If it's some of the 3D discs y'all did, I probably have them. I just haven't watched the bonus features.
Yeah, Mad Magician, I'm thinking. The Vincent Price movie.
Yeah.
And actually, they may have been reissued by someone in the UK. We didn't work on those, so I'm a little bit vague, but they are out there.
So if you were going to give somebody who is totally new to 3D your top 5 films to see first to sell them on the process, where would you send them?
House of Wax. It Came from Outer Space.
Definitely.
The Glass Web.
Interesting.
Hugo, which is a modern Martin Scorsese, but he emulated the style of cinematography, and it's not a 2.5D movie like most of the contemporary films. Absolutely stunning. And then a film that a lot of people don't know, but we're working on a new restoration of it now. The Bubble. It's an Arch Oboler science fiction movie from 1966. And the best way to describe that, it's sort of like a Twilight Zone, but extended. And the stereo cinematography is outstanding. And it's a really interesting story. It's a long movie, but if you go with it, it's a lot of fun. And I've always used that as a great demo. And if I have if I didn't name 5, Inferno.
Inferno is fantastic. Yeah, I can't remember. I can't believe I forgot to mention that one.
Yeah,
that is for those of you who haven't seen it. It's got Robert Ryan, great film noir actor. It's directed by Roy Ward Baker. And
yes.
Is Rhonda Fleming also in that one, or is
yeah?
I thought so. I thought that.
Yeah, She's
iconic redhead was in there. Yeah, no, it's
oh,
a fantastic film. Shot in the
she's
desert.
wonderful. Yeah, and then you got to mention Creature from the Black Lagoon. That's iconic. The Maze, the William Cameron Menzies. That is Martin Scorsese's favorite 3D film of the period. He helped us
Wow.
restore it. Yeah, Film Foundation secured 4K scans of the camera negatives for that restoration we did about 6-7 years ago. So there's, there were in that very short window between late 1952 and the end of 53, there were 50 English language 3D movies produced. So there's a lot to, and we've restored at least half of them. And
Pretty
studios,
good start.
yeah, Universal and Sony have done, and Warner's have done some of the others. And well, there you go. There's Money from Home. That is the that's on set, and that is behind them that massive 6-strip Technicolor camera.
That is an enormous camera rig.
It's gigantic. They had and that's covered over because they would have to blimp it for sound.
Right.
But when they had to remove the blimp to reload the camera, they would call for the pallbearers to come on set and remove that massive casing over the camera. And there you go. That is the 2 3-strip Technicolor cameras. The right camera is shooting straight on, and the left camera is shooting the image through a mirror, and that is so they can get the lenses that much closer together. Because if you put those cameras side by side, there's no way you can get them 2.5 inches apart. It would not have been possible.
You'd be feet apart, and it would look strange.
Yes, exactly.
That's really incredible. And I never even thought about the fact that they would have to use a mirroring system that was outside of the camera. That's quite an intricate little setup.
They came up with some pretty ingenious systems, and whenever possible, we try to go back to camera negative on the restorations. Unfortunately, it's not always an option because of the cost,
Right.
and we have to work from a dupe element or whatever. But Greg Kintz, who is our technical director, he's an absolute genius with taking even very compromised elements and working his magic to wring every bit of quality out of them.
And I can attest that you guys have done that, because there are a couple of titles where you can see that the elements were not in the best of shape, but usually these things look pretty fantastic. And
yeah, it's we've had to tell people on some releases, including our most recent, which is a film called Frankenstein's Bloody Terror, a Paul Naschy film from shot in Spain in the late 60s. And we had to work from dupe elements, which were very, very compromised. And it was a case of working. Yeah, I mean, it was a case of working with what we had or not doing it at all. And,
right.
You just do the best you can and try to make a silk purse out of it.
So what are we looking at here? We've got, it looks like the crew from Money from Home.
Yeah,
And,
you've got the cinematographer standing on the left. That's Daniel L. Thapp. And the director is George Marshall sitting in the chair, and the crew. I wish I knew everyone's name, and this is the sad part, because Jerry Lewis would have, his memory was so good, he would have looked at that photo and identified everybody.
wow.
But he's gone, and we don't have names for everyone in that photo. But
That's
yeah,
really
that was
cool.
good.
So, this was the only 3D film that Jerry Lewis did, right? Just the one?
Correct. Yes.
Man, that's a tragedy. I would have loved to have seen Jerry get to direct a 3D film. What he might have done with it.
He came along at a time when the technology was really developing, and their next film after Money from Home was Living It Up, which was not 3D, but it was shot flat widescreen. Right. And then from there on, they went into Three Ring Circus, which was VistaVision. and photographed in a horizontal format for a super high resolution image. So here's an example, one of the frames from the restoration. And I have to give a shout out to our colleague Jack Theakston, because he took those red, green, blue scans and shot by shot painstakingly realigned them.
It
And
looks
what was very
fantastic.
complicated, yeah, it was very complicated because the film is 72 years old and there was shrinkage between the different color records. And sometimes the shrinkage varied from shot to shot. So Jack had to really do some very tedious work to realign these records. But you see the results, and it's
Wow.
it's absolutely stunning, and it looks like it was just photographed. And I should say too, for the film purists out there, we don't believe in removing grain. That was part of the process. Motion picture analog film has grain, so there is a certain amount of that, but it's not distracting in any way, and it's very organic to the Technicolor process. So
I
you're going
love
to see
how thoroughly designed the sets and costumes were to show off the Technicolor too.
Oh, very much so. Yeah. Um, and it's interesting because sometimes they're shooting on what looked like a standing set, like there's a sequence in a train depot. And it's not a very colorful sequence because, well, train stations would not be painted in multicolors. But what George Marshall did was put a lot of people in colorful costumes on the set. So, including a harem. So you've got all the harem ladies wearing different colored robes, and it's a very striking. And there you go. There's Dean singing "Love Is the Same" to the ladies in the harem.
Wow. Maybe we should have done Harem Scarum in 3D. Maybe that would have saved that film.
I think Elvis missed 3D, although 3D did play Memphis in 1953, so I suspect he at least probably saw some of the first releases.
I'm sure he did. I was doing some research about when Elvis recorded his first record at the library, and I found out that the day that I settled on, August 15th, 53, was also the day that Gentlemen Prefer Blondes opened in Memphis.
Perfect. Okay. Well, he worked at, was it the Orpheum Theater?
He worked at the Lowe's State Theater, which was on Main Street, right around the corner from Beale Street. And he worked there from 50 to 52, I think, off and on.
Okay.
But also frequented that theater and the Suzor, which was a little bit closer to it, to Lauderdale Courts in Alabama Street. But
Gotcha.
those theaters he really was a constant presence at, from what I understand.
I imagine, yeah, for sure. No, Memphis was one of the big cities for 3D movies, so I'm sure at least a third or maybe half of them played Memphis in 3D before the bubble burst.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, in Memphis still, like, there are buildings where you can see the old studio logos because those are where the distribution hubs were for the like Paramount and stuff like that.
Yeah, those are cool. Every major city had those. They were called Film Row, and that's where theaters could go to pick up the posters, the such as these, and trailers and things like that.
Yeah, they actually ran a place. There was a business in Memphis called the Theater Poster Exchange for a long time that had a lot of the old posters that had been in there. And they used to sell on eBay even. And I managed to get one poster completely by accident that was from Lowe's State. And it missed being while Elvis was working there by like 2 months.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. It was a one sheet for The Tall Target, which is a pretty good movie. Yeah.
Is that a Randolph Scott?
It's this is Dick Powell.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So well, I have thoroughly enjoyed this, Bob. I tell you, we still got a little time here. I want to know more about Jerry Lewis. So you said you got to know Jerry Lewis very well. Tell us a little bit about Jerry and how you got to work for him.
I met him. I was vacationing in Los Angeles in 1982, and my brother was working at Warner Brothers. And actually, it was David Walper Productions who did This Is Elvis. And we were walking around the back lot and turned a corner and saw someone shooting a movie. And I said, "Okay, that's kind of cool. Let's go check this out." And it turned out it was Jerry Lewis doing a movie called Smorgasbord.
What?
And I was in, I couldn't believe our good fortune because I was a major fan, and I got to know his manager, Joe Stabile, who had been with him for decades. And Joe introduced us to Jerry, and he eventually hired me to be his archivist. He had a warehouse in Los Angeles that he had kept through the decades that was absolutely packed with films and tapes and scrapbooks and kinescopes and all sorts of memorabilia. He had thousands and thousands of items in there. And I worked for him full time for a number of years, and we remained friends until his passing, so almost 35 years. He was a remarkable man. He treated me very well. He did a lot for me. He helped open a lot of doors. There really would be no 3D Film Archive if it weren't for his kindness, because when I moved to LA in 1984, his name opened a lot of doors for me. And I was going to these labs and storage facilities and warehouses looking for material for his archive. But I was also keeping another eye out for 3D material, and he was totally on board with that. He said, have fun, knock yourself out, and I hope you find some good stuff. And I did. I had a great experience. He was an amazing man, a very brilliant individual, and I have nothing but good things to say about him.
You're very fortunate. He's always been one of my favorite filmmakers. I used to moderate a subreddit called True Film, which is dedicated to the serious study of cinema. And I was in charge of programming theme months, where we'd take a theme and you'd sort of pick, 4 or 5 films for people to watch and then discuss that month. And when the theme was surrealism, in addition to our Dali and Buñuel films, I had Jerry Lewis as the ladies' man.
Hey,
Programmed there because I think he is one of the great surrealist filmmakers.
Ladies Man was incredible. Such a fun movie, and a real. I mean, they used 2 huge sound stages to build that set.
It's incredible, yeah.
It's remarkable, and those rooms, all these rooms in the film were, mic'd for sound. And so they didn't have to be like trying to get boom mics into these tight spaces, and electric for the lighting and everything. It was a massively complex set, and that's a wonderful movie. Again, so much fun with an audience. I think the sequence with Buddy Lester and the hat has one of the 10 funniest things I've ever seen in a theater. It's one of those moments where the laughter starts and it just builds and builds and builds. And it's a great film, one of his best.
There's so many great sequences in that. We got another comment from the chat. Stephen Fisher says, I still have my Vizio 3D TV and I'm very happy that you are preserving these films. I could not agree more with that.
Oh, that's great, Stephen. Vizio was a good set. Yeah, I'm glad you've got that. Take really, really good care of it. And I should say, too, that even though the display manufacturers dropped support, there's still projectors that are made that are 3D capable. Epson is very reasonable. That makes a good quality projector. And now VR headsets and the option to view these films in this immersive VR world, which is mind-blowing. You put these things on and you're in a theater space. You've got seats around you and walls, and the movie plays on the screen, and it's surreal. It's so remarkable. So there are options.
At least there is a way to still see some of these movies if you want to. If you're, and that's a really good option for a lot of people who are into gaming. I've got a lot of friends who are into VR stuff, so I'll have to let them know they can
Yeah,
actually use that to
absolutely.
watch old 3D movies too.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. So, are there any closing thoughts? Anything you want to tell us about the work of preserving 3D, or how people can support this if they want to?
Well, we occasionally do Kickstarter campaigns for projects. We don't have a campaign that's live now, but if you go to our website, which is 3dfilmarchive.com, we always include a link on the main page for campaigns, and we have 2 outstanding campaigns now that are nearly finished. Once those are done and out to the backers, we're going to launch a campaign for the 3rd volume of 3D Rarities, which will be put together for release next year in 2026. There's going to be some amazingly cool things on that 3rd set that we found within the last few years of really incredible historic significance. So
I'm
keep an eye
glad
out.
that you brought up that series, because I had forgotten to mention that. Tell everybody a little bit about the 3D Film Rarities series, because there are 3. This is going to be the 3rd volume. There are 2 that are
Yeah.
already out.
It was one of the first things we did in 2015, and it was the concept behind it was to take the best of the material I had found over the decades and restore everything and present it. And we put about 2.5 hours of content on there, shorts dating back to the 1920s. And volume 2 came out a few years later, and the centerpiece for that was the first 3D movie photographed in Mexico, called Sword of Granada, or El Corazón y la Espada, with Katie Jurado and Cesar Romero.
Oh, wow.
So the centerpiece of Rarities 3 is going to be this really amazing historic footage that we found a few years ago that no one has ever seen before. And it's going to blow a lot of people's minds. So you look for that. Don't
You
have
got me excited now about this. I can't wait to see it. So
it's going to be a full release.
I got one more question for you. You were mentioning the Batman 3D images that you were looking at from the '66 show. Are those preserved anywhere? Like, is there anywhere you can go see Batman in '66 in 3D, even in still frames? Because that really, I wasn't aware that such a thing existed.
Well, the Viewmaster reel was enormously popular, and it sold. It was in print for like 30 years. So if you go on eBay and just search for Batman Viewmaster, you'll see probably dozens, if not hundreds, of copies.
Okay.
But what you want to look for are the earlier releases when they were using Kodachrome film, because those have not faded. Some of the later reissues were on standard Eastman color, and those would have turned red. But yeah, all you need, they're very common.
Okay,
so
I'll go check this out.
Get yourself a viewer and the 3 Kodachrome reels, and you'll be in Batman heaven.
If only they'd done a whole episode in 3D.
Well, that was not an option. But and once you get that, you can go down a real rabbit hole. You can get there were Viewmaster reels for the Star Trek TV show, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, the Time Tunnel, the Green Hornet. I mean, Lassie, Laugh-In, the Monkeys. You can start collecting. See what you started, John. You're gonna.
And this is like a whole other rabbit hole that I, had not spent much time thinking about. But that's really cool.
Well, there you go.
Glimpses of lots of 1960s TV shows in 3D.
It's wild, and it's a lot of fun. It's a real time capsule.
Now, I will say, I don't know if you're aware of this, but something Elvis related came up at auction years ago. Someone had taken some stereoscopic images of Elvis in Las Vegas, I think in 1971. And they went for an insane amount of money at auction. I think there were only 2 or 3 of them, of him on stage. But
I remember seeing that, and they're not terribly close to the stage, are they? They're kind of
these are pretty
back
good.
in the
Like these are probably
Are they?
front row shots. The one that I'm thinking of.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I attempted to kind of put them together so that I could, you know, try to imagine what it was like just by, doing the parallax thing, but no luck.
Well, yeah. I mean, of course, there's so much that can be done now with conversion, and I'm blown away when I see the quality of conversions where people are taking flat images and making them 3D.
Right.
But to have the actual real thing with the slides, I could see that going for big bucks.
So we've got a question here from Jamie. He says, "How did they make those Batman ViewMaster slides in 3D? Were these
They had
photos?"
a photographer with a stereo camera went on set and photographed the images, and after they would do a take and lock the scene in, they would stay in position and let the ViewMaster cameraman come on and grab a photo. And it's cool because in at least one of them, you could see the boom mic sort of hanging down into the picture, a shot in Commissioner Gordon's office. But they're wild. Yeah, it will be. You'll thank me when you get those reels in Viewer, because it's a
So
lot of fun.
with ViewMaster, would the ViewMaster company just like contact TV shows that they wanted photos from?
Yeah,
Or okay, that's
because
interesting.
they were enormously popular, and I can remember when those reels were sold in camera shops, because the ViewMaster company began in 1939, and for the first decade or two, it was primarily scenic reels that they
Right.
were producing. But then in the 50s, they started doing television shows, and it just became a huge marketing thing because the reels would promote the show and vice versa. Uh, and the rights to all of those reels, we actually licensed a few of them from the early 50s, a character that they introduced called Sam Sawyer. And
Mm,
those are included on our first 3D Rarity set. But all of the material went to, I think it was Fisher Price acquired the Sawyer's catalog. And I don't know what the current status is of the elements, sadly.
wow.
It would be great to see those restored and preserved, though.
It would be. Bob, this has been so fascinating. I love talking 3D. I could talk to you just about movies all day.
You're making me want to go up in my attic now and see if I can find my ViewMaster. And then now
There you go.
now I have another like eBay addiction to start looking for ViewMaster prints.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to
Real.
at least snag the Batman ones. So
So let me
It's
just say before we end, I do want to say I'm the one that has the Vizio TV, and I love it. The internal speakers have gone on it, so I have a sound bar. But I have 3D Blu-ray, and I have a PlayStation. So there are some games like a PlayStation 4 that has 3D capabilities, and there are some games they made that were in 3D. And one of the things I love about it was that all of the movies that were coming out in 3D in theaters, when you would get the glasses and then they would say, please recycle them on your way out of the theater, they would go into my pocket because they're the same glasses I can use on my TV. And I paid an extra
yes.
couple of bucks for the ticket because I got the glasses. I'm not giving them back to you until my
There
wife
you
started
go.
saying, we have way too many glasses. You need to start leaving them at the theater. And I also have a PlayStation VR. I didn't realize they had movie theater VR things that I'm going to have to see if I can look.
Yeah, I don't know the specifics of it, but if
Yeah.
you reach out, if you Google it, right, I'm sure the information will come up about how to do that. But I've seen it, and it's pretty amazing.
And one more comment relating to the House of Wax. I live in Rochester, New York. So we have the George Eastman House and Museum here in Rochester. And at the back of the house and museum is a theater called the Dryden Theater. And they do a lot of show a lot of different movies. You know, I've seen Superman the movie there several times. I've seen Metropolis with live music accompaniment. I saw Nosferatu with live music accompaniment. This is probably going to be up 20 years, but they just had a whole bunch of 3D movies that they were showing. And I happened to go see The House of Wax. I was so blown away by this movie. And I need to get it and watch it again because it's been such a long time. But there's the one scene where the guy comes.
You're cutting out on us here, Steve. I think we might have lost him.
I think he was going to finish his story. Yes, there's a scene where the character played by Charles Bronson enters the film from the audience, and he was crouched under the camera and enters the shot. And when you see that in a theater, it looks like someone in the row in front of you has gotten up and walked up. It's one of the most effective shots.
Was that right, Steve?
Did I freeze?
Yeah, we lost you right after. There's a scene where, yes.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah. So he came from the back, ran past the camera down to the front of the screen, and I jumped because I thought there was someone in the movie theater running down the aisle because I was sitting at the end of the aisle. And I was like, wait a minute, what? And then I realized it was on screen, and I was just blown away.
Yeah, that's an incredibly effective scene. And a few other directors used a similar technique because that was so popular. But you're talking about the Dryden Theater. If you saw Robot Monster at that festival, that was our print. We loaned them a few things for that. It was around 2000.
I don't think I did.
Okay. But it was about 20 years ago, I think.
I'm going to start looking into all of your Blu-rays and start getting some because I love 3D. You know, the TV, my 3D TV has been moved into the back bedroom. It's been retired because it's only 1080p. And with all the new technology coming out, you know, we upgraded and got a different TV. And I really wish that there was some kind of resurgence. I was hoping that when James Cameron was doing the next movies in all his 3D stuff, that people were going to get another resurgence and the TV manufacturers would come back, but alas.
Yeah, the whole rollout was botched, really. The early models weren't that good, so a lot of people had bad experiences with them. And then, all of a sudden 4K became the new buzzword, and you could have had both, but no, they dropped 3D and went with 4K. But if you go to our website, there's a page of available film restorations. We have links on there that you can order them, and there's a lot of really fun titles. I think that you'll enjoy.
All right. Well, I think that's it. Thank you both for your time today. It's been great. I've learned a lot, and
thank you, everybody.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Steve, thank you so much. It was a real pleasure.
Welcome. Otherworldly Fundraising is a group of friends who decided to use our nerdy talents to help others. Our charity this year is Options Save Lives, which helps individuals fully recover from alcohol use disorder. Thank you for joining us this weekend and for donating to this worthy charity.